to a Hope 1032 podcast.
As followers of Jesus, in whom all things were made, we acknowledge the Darug people as the traditional custodians of the country of where this podcast is recorded. We acknowledge their continuing connection to the land and waters, and thank them for protecting this land and its ecosystems since time immemorial. We pay our respects to elders past, present and future, and we extend that respect to all First Nations peoples listening today.
Hope Book Club with Georgia and Simone. Because life's just better with a book.
Hi, I'm Georgia.
And I'm Simone.
And welcome to episode 57 of the Hope Book Club podcast, where we gush about books and talk about literature from a hope-filled Christian lens. We hope this podcast makes you laugh, makes you think, and most of all, makes you read. This episode, we are delving into the world of crime fiction, a first for us this year, and we're going to be reading a relatively new novel, Blood and Ink, by Aussie author Brett Adams. And this, as always, will be a spoiler-free episode, so if you haven't read or finished the book, don't worry about it, we're not going to spoil anything for you. And that would be really bad if we did in a crime fiction novel.
Like, really bad, especially this one.
Now, let's get into the book. Blood and Ink is about a literature professor, Jack Griffin. He's recently suffered a bit of a nervous breakdown. His wife has divorced him, and she and their adult daughter, Tracy, have moved over to the USA. Into the void steps exchange student Hero Beck, claiming to be the professor's greatest fan. Hero is writing a crime novel, and he seeks Jack's literary advice, and together the pair spend hours discussing Jack's writing, as well as the greatest classic crime fiction and true crime books of all time. But everything changes when Hero vanishes, leaving only a list of 5 templates to a murder. When one of Jack's students is assaulted, and her name is the first of the 5 murders on the template, the professor must race against the clock and across the world to stop Hero's crime novel from coming true.
So Brett Adams, he feels a little close to home for me because he was, raised in country Western Australia and now lives in Perth, which until a couple of years ago, so did I. But this is where we very much differ. He has a PhD in computer science.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, which is not what you expect when you're looking at an author, right? But that has taught him to love puzzles. And he has a family who taught him to love stories. So he also found that reading The Lord of the Rings in his childhood changed him. He was fascinated not only by Tolkien's world and characters, but by how Tolkien could kind of plot something large and intricate and sort of, plot that out completely. And so, that love of what Tolkien did and the intrigue sort of led him to writing.
That is so interesting. And I think that is very much shown in this book because the plot is so intricate and there are so many moving parts and details, and you can tell he's really mapped out this world really, really well. And I think this premise of like a crime novel within a crime novel, it's very meta.
It is.
Very unique plot. So it was really interesting to see. I think when we both read the synopsis before we both read the book, we were both super intrigued. We're like, oh, how is this going to play out? We don't know. We've never seen this kind of done before in like Australian crime fiction.
Yeah.
So we were both really excited. But I know that both of us actually really struggled to get into this one, which with me in crime fiction, that doesn't normally happen. Like I am hooked in the first 10, 20 pages. Yeah. Once I was in, I will say, I was able to continue quite easily, and it really did kind of pick up towards the end, and the climax was really, really kind of well detailed. But yeah, it just didn't grab me from the beginning like many crime novels do. What was it for you that just didn't sit quite right?
Yeah, so for me, there was a lot of different things like the realism kind of, it was, you really had to move out of, I guess, your own sort of what's real, what is realistic, really kind of put a lot of things aside. And weirdly, the things that really, right at the beginning, took me out immediately with that, funnily enough, had nothing to do with the novel. For me, there were 2 things. So one of my pet peeves in novels like absolute pet peeve actually is when like language or cultural kind of stuff or tech and that does not fit with the era. And so a little phrase for me can totally take me out of the moment. And weirdly, it was when he used the phrase Y generation. And I was like, I have not heard that terminology. I thought we had moved on from that. It actually made me go back and be like, wait, when was this written and published?
Yeah.
And I was
it
like,
was only in like last year or 2021, right?
it was published in 2022. And I was
Yeah.
like, how, like, surely when you do a rewrite before publishing, if it has been written before, you update the language to that a little to be more current. Like, that feels like it's more of like, you would change that to like millennial, for example, or you would change it to something, I don't know, just maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Y generation is still being used, but I have not heard that in an age.
No. And there were certain parts, now I think about it, like throughout the book,
Yeah.
just certain words and certain phrases where I'm like, is that a Western Australia thing? Is that...
No, it's not. It was, well, not this Western Australian girl. And then the second thing again is a Western Australian thing. And can I just say, as someone who lived in Perth, how is a lecturer affording to have a mortgage and own a house in Netherlands? That is
Netherlands a fancy place?
unbelievable. Oh my gosh. It's okay. So I was trying to think of like what would be the equivalent. That would be like, to me, I think it would be like having the equivalent of a place in Kirribilli.
Oh.
Like it is
An academic. Oh, that's hilarious.
An academic having a place. So unless
he's got tenure.
I was going to say, unless the character, no, but that's not really like, it's not a major thing. And even knowing how much, like even professors on the high wage, like it's still not enough, especially on the heels of a divorce, to have a place with like river views in Netherlands. Like that is just not realistic. And the second there was that moment and it was like river views, and I was like, okay. Firstly, I was like, that's fine. Like I was trying to like justify it to myself. I'm like, you know what, maybe it's in like, you know, a different little area. Like maybe there's a few places you could have like slight river views and it be realistic. And then when it said Netherlands, I was just like, no, I'm out. Like that is... No.
That's hilarious. Okay, I think I was a little less nitpicky with the details at the start. Maybe that's just because I'm not from Western Australia. But for me, it was some of the decisions that the main character made at the start that were crucial to the plot. Don't get me wrong. If he didn't make these decisions, we wouldn't have a story.
Yeah.
But it was like, it just wasn't quite believable. And that is a real, I feel like a balancing act with crime fiction, because you need your characters to be realistic enough that it's believable. Yeah. But you also need to kind of make them enough bad decisions that the reader's like, oh, why are you doing that? Like, and they're trying to like, I guess, figure it out and stay ahead of them. So yeah, there were like certain things that like, you know, the police didn't, you know, he went to the police after he found the assault and the murder template and was like, look, this guy's crazy. And the police didn't believe him. The police thought that Jack himself, the professor, was the killer and was kind of like this weird kind of in the psychotic episode, which like fair enough. Looking at like from the outside looking in, I like that is absolutely fair. But instead of like really pushing that, he just then hopped on a plane to Hong Kong and decided to go on a little, you know, rat race around the world to try and stop the rest of these murders. And I'm like, surely there would just be a little more discussion.
Absolutely. But you know what? That actually bothered me to begin with too, until I hit a certain point in the book and I was like, and you know what it was for me that changed my idea of that was he came across as hypocritical and arrogant and like, you know, thought he could just go and follow this and do whatever he wanted, right? Until I realized this was a man who was acting out of the, I guess, mentality of someone with unearned confidence, a privileged man who has not really had a huge amount of like difficulty in life. He's not had to think things through that much. That's what it came across to me. And maybe that's not how it was written, but that for me is how I reconciled that.
That is interesting. Okay, no, that's actually fair. So the start, it was a bit of a rocky start. I will say, once we got into the story and you kind of, as you said, kind of let go of your logical brain and was just able to put it aside and see the story for what it was, which was just a bit unrealistic, but also just really action-packed and really fun.
Yeah.
it was a really great read. So what were some of the things that you really liked about it?
Again, being from Perth, the descriptions of the city. I did love that. Just as a little side thing, like the WA style of casualness was really fun to read. Like that was great. I also love, like literary and film references, but it did leave me questioning, and I loved that it kind of left me questioning whether the narrator was being true or not.
Yes.
Like it absolutely did. It kind of gave me at times Fight Club vibes of just not quite sure what's real, what's not, what is, is he mentally stable? Is he not? There were so many questions that came into it with that for me. And definitely that plus all of the references that were in it had that vibe of that same feeling when I was reading it that I sometimes have when I watch Fight Club.
Mm.
And then I also just, again, like you said, the around the world thing, right?
It was like an Amazing Race crime fiction edition. He went everywhere.
It was like around the world in 80 days kind of vibes, but with this added tension and madcapness of chasing a killer. That actually was done really well and it was great. But the thing that I loved the most about this book is really how it asks this question of how do we stay connected and how do we connect to people around us and to our life and our humanity in the midst of feeling fragile and broken. And that for me, it's so easy when you're in the middle of tough times or when you're in the middle of things to disconnect and start to think, and start to disconnect from your humanity even, when you start to shut down, when you start going into that thoughts of what is real, what isn't, how easy it can then be to disconnect as well from your humanity to go, what's right, what's wrong, what line would I even cross? And I feel like this was something that really kind of came out throughout the book, but it didn't really hit home until towards the end. It's something that you don't think through. And I think as Christians, that's a really fascinating thing to stop and think about, to go, okay, how do we make sure we stay connected to our humanity? And I think, the easy answer is our faith, right? But it's never that simple. And how do you do that? And I think this was that raised, it didn't answer the questions, absolutely did not answer the question, but it definitely raised the question to start thinking about.
And I think that's what I really liked about it is this book left you with questions about your own life.
Yeah.
Because it kind of painted, this complex character of this Professor Jack and then, Hero, this, broken kid essentially that's gone on or what we think has gone on this, murderous rampage. But they go, into the background of these characters. No one is just this one-sided kind of this person's evil, this person's good. It wasn't that kind of book at all. It was like everyone's complex. We're all just a couple of bad decisions away from losing our humanity. So how do we hold on to it? It was really, really good. One thing I also really liked about it, apart from the Aussie humour, which was just...
I know, right? That very Australian stuff was amazing.
So good and really, really biting. Like at unexpected times, I will say, Brett, the author, was really, really fantastic at that. I also just really liked that it was a love letter to crime novels.
Yes.
Obviously there was obvious references to crime novels all the time and it was very kind of intricate to the plot, as you'll come to see. But it really just felt like the author just appreciates this genre so much and wanted to add to it, at the same time giving a platform for all of these amazing kind of crime novels that have existed throughout history. I really liked that. Which I think begs the question now, what do you think, Sim, makes a really good crime novel?
Oh, that is such a big question.
I know. I'm so sorry.
I'll admit, trying to think about that was almost as tough to get into as the book. A great crime novel makes you feel like you're a part of it, like you're a part of the detective team trying to figure it out. A great crime novel will make you feel like you're seeing enough there that you think you can work it out before the protagonist does. It makes you want to know. It makes you think about like and see the little things that they like, the little, like, whether it's red herrings or like little bits and
Just
pieces
details,
details that kind of come into it. But I think it also gives you a character that you can follow along with, that you can kind of almost put yourself in the shoes of, because you're not, you're trying to solve it and all of that with them. But unless you're actually in the action with that, I think it can be really hard to feel like you're trying to solve it. You feel like you're watching someone else trying to solve it. So for me, that's what I love. I love something where I can feel like I'm, I guess, part of the action and trying to like solve it along with the team. And I think a good crime novel has complex characters. No one is just good or evil. There always has to be solid, clear motive. For me, that's imperative. And now that motive can be something that isn't typical. It can be something that is layered. It can be something that might even be inaccurate. But there has to be a reason. There has to be like a really strong journey that you can see for why it's happened.
And I think that's something that this book did well towards the second half. I think what was lacking in the first half for me is that I didn't know Jack's motive. I didn't know enough about his backstory. And that was like slowly revealed, but it wasn't revealed to the start enough for me to reconcile his actions towards the beginning. So automatically I'm like offside with Jack. I'm like, why are you doing these things? And then as you kind of move on, it's like, oh, and you gain more understanding and he becomes more understandable in that way.
And do you find that like you need that early on to want to keep reading?
Yes.
Because if we didn't have to keep reading this, it would have been hard to keep going. Like,
I think I actually, I'm not saying this to put people off this. I think I genuinely would have bailed.
Yeah.
Even though I ended up really liking the book because it turned around for me about like 40% in. Yep. It really did a massive like 180, and then I was like scrambling, like I really just wanted to know how this happened.
Yes.
But I just thought the start was a little bit slow, and I think they were just trying to pack too much in. There was a lot happening in the plot. There was a lot happening with the literary references, the characters. They even have this like secondary character, Martin from the FBI, who I loved, by the way. Absolutely loved her, but then she wasn't introduced until halfway in, and I'm like, what's even happening at the moment?
And the thing that I found with that was then there was just a lot of, I guess, moments and scenes that you're like, we didn't really need that.
Yeah.
Like it didn't get to the action.
Needed a good edit.
It didn't get quite to the action. So not to put you off at all, because if you can get past that first 40%.
You will love this book.
It's fantastic.
And I actually think that, if you take away the logical part of your brain, this is actually a really fun, enjoyable read.
It is.
Like a really great one for like on holidays and stuff like that. It is actually genuinely really fun.
So Georgia, I've got to ask, what do you need in a crime novel?
Yeah, the characters are a big one for me. Obviously, they don't necessarily need to be likable, but they need to be interesting.
Yeah.
I need to want to learn about them. And you need to want to find out the answer. I think this book was less about finding out the answer because we already kind of knew the answer from the beginning. It was more about like the race against the clock to see if the characters could find out the answer before, time kind of ran out. So the elements of mystery were definitely there in the plot. I just don't know if it was necessarily strong enough without that really, really well-developed character. I think for a crime novel, for me, it is just all about that character.
And crime novels are huge.
Oh, I think they're probably the most popular genre.
One of the most popular genres, right? And what do you think it is about crime novels that just keep pulling us in? Because I love them.
I think crime novels are formulaic. They're escapism at its best. You know what you're getting. And I think it's the same when we watch crime shows, all right? Yeah. They're these horrible things and you can kind of, I guess, separate it from your own life because heinous crime really does happen quite rarely. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, oh, this will never happen to me. I know that there's this thing that happens at the start and by the end of the book, in some way or another, I will know what happened. And it's not necessarily a happy ending, but it's that sense of justice as well. And as humans, oh my goodness, we love justice. We just want the good guys to win, or if that can't happen, if the good guys end up dying, we want the bad guys to pay for what they did.
I was going to say be held accountable.
Be held accountable. That's definitely the better term for that. And I think that's what crime novels do. You can play around with the plot. You can get complex, and that this book definitely was unique in that way. But at the end of the day, you finish the book, you turn the last page, and it's all wrapped up in a nice bow. And I think that is what is so
comforting. I find I'm going to say something weird here. Crime novels can be really comforting to read because of all of those things that you said. The bad guys are usually held accountable. The good guys, you know, there's a whole formula. It's wrapped up in a bow, and you feel like at the end everything is right with the world again.
I think crime novels are so appealing to people is because it's a sure thing. We've got so much unknowns in our own life that you can genuinely pick up this book without knowing necessarily what the plot is, what the characters will be. Sure, that's all unknown. But the plot and mechanism are genuinely, like, the genre is so formulaic that it's like, this is comforting because my brain knows what it's going to get.
Yeah.
And in a lot of other genres of books, you know, fiction, sci-fi, blah, 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 it can be so out there and outlandish and doesn't necessarily all wrap up in a little bow. I think crime fiction has continued to be that genre that is predictable without being super predictable.
Yeah. And honestly, it's sort of, I think probably the only other genre that might rival crime fiction in popularity is romance. And honestly, it's the same reasons. It's
the same.
It's the same reasons. You know, there's likely to be a happy ending at the end, and it's sort of, you know, wrapped up in a bow. I definitely agree. Like, it's all of those sorts of things.
Now let's answer some Facebook comments that we've gotten over the past couple of weeks. There's actually some really great suggestions here for a range of crime novels. So even those that aren't too thrillery or gruesome. This one, Blood and Ink, had a tinge of violence and descriptions that might, you know, just make people a little bit queasy. So if you're more into like cozy crime novels and thrillers and things like that, some of these suggestions will be great.
We did actually ask the Facebook community sort of what some of their favourite crime novels were. And Jermaine let us know that she loves The Ruin by Dervla McTiernan.
Oh.
And I love that one too.
I started reading that, and then I don't know what happened. I remember really liking it, and I think I must have got distracted. But I think I need to go back and read it.
I love it. I love a good, solid female detective kind of. Yeah, love it. She's also said Anything by Jane Harper.
Yes, love Jane.
And she's just finished Homecoming by Kate Morton. And she said, although it's not quite true crime novel, it's by far one of her favourite reads, and she'd probably put that still under like the gentle crime novel read.
So we were actually tossing up between doing Blood and Ink or Homecoming by Kate Morton. So it's good to know that there are some recommendations for that one.
There is. Shannon and Kim both recommended Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone by Benjamin Stevenson, which was another one we considered doing. So good to know that that's on the list. Kim also recommended the Thursday Murder Club series by Richard Osman.
Yes. I think Katrina, in the earlier iterations of Book Club, I think they've reviewed definitely the first one, perhaps even the second one. I know the fourth one is out now, so there's like a whole bunch. But I think that they can read as standalone books as well. So if you haven't read them all, don't worry about it.
And it's in the process of being turned into an adaptation. So if you're thinking about reading something, now's probably the time to read it, because get yourself prepared for that. And then Linda recommended Ray Cairns, her two novels, Dying to Know and The Good Mother. She said they keep you involved, they're hard to put down, but they're not too gory or violent. So maybe that can go in the gentle reads category as well. Catherine says she loves Anything by Jane Harper or Candice Fox.
Oh,
there's some great recommendations in here. I also am a big Jane Harper fan.
Me too.
And, you know, Sue reached out and she said she hasn't found any crime novels she likes. They seem too angsty. That's right. And I love that. Yeah. She likes gentle reads. So, you know, there's been some suggestions in there for that. But we would love to hear some of your suggestions as well for like gentle crime reads or, you know, anything that you've loved. or anything else that you're enjoying reading. So, send us a voicemail. It's at 029 854 7025, or you can leave us a post in the Hope Book Club Facebook group.
And all that information is in the show notes. And before we end, Sim, we actually have something really, really exciting coming up in the next couple of weeks. We have our next Hope Book Club live event over Zoom. We'd love for you to join us as we discuss the hugely popular Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. If you haven't heard of this book, it follows the life story of chemist Elizabeth Zott, who was a scientist in the 50s. It talks about kind of the struggle she goes through as a female scientist, but also a single mother growing up in that time. It is just a really, really fantastic read, and it's got a lot of people talking at the moment. So
it does. So that's going to be on Thursday night, the 27th of July. To get that Zoom link, you can go to our hope1032.com.au and register on there. And if you register in the next little bit, you may also be getting a little special surprise from us.
A little gift.
Just a little small gift to enjoy either before or on the night when you join us on Zoom.
Yeah, so it's really fun. So make sure to head to our website for all those details, hope1032.com.au. We'd also love this podcast to reach more people, and the way you can help with that is to rate, review, subscribe, share it with your friends who really love books. Just send the episode to them and say, please listen to this. But until then, stay reading. We will catch you next time. Sim, I believe you've got a quote to end on.
In the wise words of Frank Zappa, so many books, so little time.
Hope 1032. Thanks for listening.